Okay, my friends, today we are going to be learning from Alexandra Dotcheva, who has come from a background as a symphony violinist, now runs and owns several real estate companies. She is also, and this is most intriguing, a holistic confidence coach. And what does that mean to you? It's going to help you, like it helped her, get through a bunch of years of self doubt to get to be confident and building powerful businesses. So, welcome, Alexandra.
Thank you for having me, Joe. Pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, it's fantastic. And for viewers, please subscribe, constantly bringing you great guests that can help you in your real estate career, such as Alexandra. So, Alexandra, let's talk real estate, nursing. How did all this come about?
Well, it came about, Joe. I was a musician for 26 years before I decided to transition into nursing. And I was programmed to be a stage performer and all that, and hard work, discipline from a very early childhood because of my parents who were also musicians. The problem was that I didn't have enough confidence, like you mentioned, as far as the stage was concerned, because it's not a good thing when you can deliver 65 to 70% of what you're able to deliver in the practice room on stage.
Yeah.
That's not what you want to do. And I was a very responsible young person at the time. I knew I had certain challenges in the violin, which I just felt to an extent guilty that I wasn't able to overcome timely enough to present myself on stage to the best of my ability. And that did not go well in my teenage and early 20s. All right. So through my early 30s, when I got to that midlife crisis, when I realized like the economy in America crashed to 2006, 2008, orchestras started bankrupting left and right in the United States because they didn't have government support like many of them have in Europe. And I had to face the reality that I was not going to prosper as a musician, and I had to change my life. And then I went into nursing. And later on, a couple years later, I also pursued the financial education in real estate investing.
Wow. So one of the things that I like to correlate is with musician or actor, there are some very similar qualities and components of that with real estate agents. Is you're as a real estate agent, as you are as an actor or on stage as a violinist, it's all about you. You can't point to anybody else. It's you're exposed to whatever is coming at you. And you can't deny that it's due to your confidence or lack thereof or your skills.
That's right. And I'm not really a real estate agent. I never was. I just became a real estate investor.
Yeah.
So I'll purchase the properties and I manage my own businesses with the residents, tenants, everything, contractors. So you're exposed, but in this business, it's different. Just like with nursing, you can actually put your ego to the back seat and focus on the needs of your clients better, like patients or tenants. You shift the focus of the success to make their lives better and easier and improve their quality of life, which wasn't quite the case I felt when I was a musician.
So and that's 100% what every professional realtor should be doing is taking care of their client. It's not about them. It really is about what their clients' needs are and their ability to get them there. So this self-doubt, where did your realization or how did you get through that and around that with what is now your holistic coaching program?
Because I hit rock bottom in 2008 at 32, personally and professionally, and there were two options, sideways or up. I chose up because with nursing and science and medicine, I had zero experience, zero connections, nothing. So I figured I'm starting from scratch. Might as well make the best of it. And I didn't have the history of pride, insecurity that I had with music. And I gave myself a chance. I gave myself a permission. It's an important shift in mindset when you doubt yourself for so many years to allow yourself to breathe for several years and learn the craft, the trade, the science really well to serve others more than you want to serve yourself. And that helped with the shift, with the confidence, because when you're dealing with sick and dying people, they don't care about your lack of confidence. You're there to support them and be there for them. And that helped tremendously with me getting distracted from my whole obsession with my perfectionism or lack of excellence at the time. Because see, the other thing is when you practice a trade for 26 years and when you have the mindset that you didn't master it by then, how in the world am I going to acquire a professional level in a matter of 3 or 4 years of nursing school? But it was a great support system with the teachers that I had because they said, no, you learn your entire life. You have to stay humble all the time. and always be open to learning, because you will learn a tremendous amount in nursing school, but you will learn 10 times more from your patients and from your experience. So when I figured, okay, it was not set in stone that in 4 years I had to be the perfect nurse, but I'm evolving every day I work. And that also helped with putting the lack of confidence aside and making anxiety into an ally. Anxiety tells you what yet has to be done for you to be even better and better. And when you use it as personal motivation, as opposed to a crushing factor of your confidence, then things change for you. So that's where, and as far as the confidence business, that started in 2020, 2021, when I published my book about holistic self-confidence. Then several listeners to host to podcast shows said, why are you not coaching? Why is there just a book? And the book is, I said, because the book is the system. You don't need an expensive coaching program. If the book is there to help you improve your health, improve your spiritual life in terms of practicing spiritually the way you want to implement your spiritual understanding with every aspect of your life, then choosing the right career in the right way, putting the right choice as a priority, then expanding your finances and prioritizing your relationships. That's what the entire self-confidence system I deal with is all about. But then came the demand for the coaching. Chronic.
I completely agree. Books are great for even this show. I mean, this stuff like this is great to give some people a little bit of guidance on how to improve. Yet getting into it with somebody on your side to help coach you through all those changes, because none of this is easy. So can you give us an example of some of the nuggets that describes it's 5 pillars of holistic confidence? Right.
Yes, we're talking health, spirituality, career, finances, and investing, relationships, excuse me. There is a lot of mental work in the book, how to embrace the change, how to recognize why you're afraid in the first place and put others' opinions aside and embrace something completely new that your gut is telling you that you should, because you'll have regrets 20 or 30 years from now if you don't do it. To put aside the fast food mentality and understand that you have a incredible potential to accomplish the unimaginable in a matter of 10, 15 years. Okay, so that's where the long-term thinking and planning is where we get afraid, because we have failed at so many things at first and we are afraid to plan 10 or 15 years ahead. And we really shouldn't, because anybody who is very wealthy and very successful that I know first placed long-term goals in front of themselves, career-wise, relationship-wise, or financial asset-wise. And to me, that was the biggest challenge. So I deal a lot with this in the book from the health perspective, spiritual perspective, career, finances, and relationships perspective. Always long-term, and never underestimate the power of your achievements in the long term. And that will really guide you greatly in your time management in the short term. Because most of us really struggle with time management, and that undermines our confidence because we didn't accomplish in a week what we wanted to accomplish in a week, let alone how do we think about 10, 15, 20 years from now if we can't make the plan for 7 days.
Yeah.
And it's just about time management and prioritization, but there are quite a few techniques in the book how to focus properly and prioritizing these 5 aspects and push them all and elevate them at the same time.
So I want to dig into one of those, but first, talking about time. Friend Josh told me the other couple months ago, because I was freaking out at some of the stuff I was working on, and he's like, Joe, most people overestimate what they can get done in 1 year, and they underestimate what they can get done in 10.
Exactly.
So you're spot on with that. When you're feeling pressure to get things done in the now, you think that we're not successful yet. If you do that in the long term, it's all going to pay off.
I think people they refuse to connect the short term with the long term in terms of their future. Because we have these tasks that just can't wait to get done with the tasks. And then we get very disappointed and angry and apprehensive when more and more and more tasks come along. And it seems like it never ends, but it's not supposed to end, because if it ends, you might as well die. Also, when you stop doing things, that's a condition known as death, right? So, but the long-term consideration and the future planning is where you connect the dots in your everyday activities and your decisions of what activities to prioritize and what not to prioritize. And it makes much more sense, and it's more elevating in the sense that you're not feeling that you're wasting time with things that you don't want to do. And you have to make yourself do things that you don't feel like doing at the moment, because anything that is very worth pursuing and challenging to your brain and to your overall emotional well-being, it will require some time on your part, and there will be many more challenges you ever imagined in any new endeavor that your gut was telling you to do, but then the excitement goes away after 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 months, and then the real problems come. And that's where you really need to dig in and persevere and say, I wanted this. I'm going to learn this and I'm going to be very successful in the end. But it's not going to happen in a year. Exactly. And I read this exact same saying in a book by Tony Robbins with the overestimating the year achievement and underestimating the ability to achieve within the next 10, 15 years. So that's just it. People don't connect the dots in their lives the way they could to appreciate the current challenges in the context of a prosperous life for many, many years to come.
So it was Tony Robbins he was quoting as well. Thank you. So of the 5 pillars, is there one that's most important?
No, I don't think we should neglect any of these 5 pillars. And that's the biggest challenge, Joe, when I go to patients' homes, for example, or in tenants' apartments when we have to solve a problem. People have lack in mainly 3 of these aspects. Health is one of them. Of course, I'm a nurse, so I'm very biased towards health, finances, and relationships. These are the 3 big things that either 1 or 2 or 3 of them you see lack in people's lives. And then that makes spirituality be inconsistent. And of course, then their careers suffer as well. Because for one thing, lots of people confuse career with wealth, and they're not the same. Okay. So your career is your way to relevant to society, needed to society, meaning you're useful to somebody else other than yourself. You're doing something beyond your own immediate necessities. That's the career. And your job is to learn marketable skills that will keep you relevant for as long as you wish to work. Because with today's galvanizingly fast developing technology, we really have to stay on top of our deal, especially people my generation, 40, 50 years old and 60 years old, because to us, the changes are extremely fast. It's not like the children that get born and they grow with these technological gadgets and to them it's second nature. It wasn't the case with me, of course. And so that is the career aspect when you really find ways to stay relevant to society and work or not work because you build wealth, which is the other aspect. That's the financial aspect, which is not a career aspect, right? So you know what to do with your money that you earn, how much you keep, and how to invest it so that it produces cash flow regardless of whether you work or not. So that's the second aspect that I see people really struggle because they're unhappy with their jobs, yet they don't prioritize their spending habits in a way that can get them out of the job successfully and build the cash flowing assets. And that's a big deal because it also affects their health, right? Because if you work yourself 3, 4 jobs to make ends meet, you're not taking good care of your health. You won't get the proper nutrition, the proper exercise, all these things that we think are caprices, but actually are absolute necessities for us to succeed in every other aspect of life to be optimally healthy. Because health is the first cause of personal bankruptcy in this country, unfortunately. And then the other thing is the relationships, right? If you don't prioritize your relationships properly, you get influenced by people to make poor decisions in all the other 4 aspects of your life. I see this all the time. So I will never say any aspect is more important. Actually, I kept it as simple as possible into just 5 life aspects because some people deal with 15 life aspects. I think that's overcomplicated. I really like to start simple and keep it simple, but with the understanding that none of these 5 aspects is any less important than the other 4.
And when speaking on spirituality as one of them, how I would think that is the one that winds through all of them,
Yeah.
right? If you don't have some kind of spirituality, some kind of belief, whether I'm not getting religious here at all,
Right.
yet there's got to be some kind of spirituality where you are in tune with what's around you, in tune with your religion, whatever that is, and you can go in there and use that as a place of solace and purpose. It helps you build your purpose. How do you get somebody that is not very spiritual to try to get there?
Well, I mean, I'm all about mind self-control. I'm all about mind self-control because when I was studying martial arts for 12 years very intensely, it was about body and mind and emotional self-control. That was the first thing that I had to learn because I had very little emotional self-control when I started karate at age 30, which was a dream of mine since the 3rd grade. But little musician, I was not even allowed to mention martial arts because, of course, I couldn't hurt my hands possibly as a violinist. But the mind control is truly to control your own mind first. So in spirituality, to me, there are 3 aspects, just like with physical health, you have detox, you have exercise, and then you have nutrition. With the mind is very similar. When you do detox, that's your meditation because you have to clear your mind. And when you meditate, you're able to listen to the world around you and see what's going on. And the ability to listen to what's around you and see really well is how you can help the world cooperate with your dreams and goals. if you listen to their needs first. And that's where the most successful businesses happen, when you're able to solve problems for many, many people at one time. That's the most successful business, which I wish everybody success in that, because it's just so relevant. That's the mind detox. Then you have the nutrition for the mind from the spiritual aspects, which is inspiration. So you like to read books of people who are much more successful than you in the areas where you want to be successful, or you do something with your mind to help yourself. You're inspired by what you do yourself. That's the nourishment for the mind. It's a constant thing that you have to really see other people's struggles and problems to realize that your struggles are, they're relevant to you, but they're nothing more special than anybody else's struggles that they have overcome and become successful regardless. And finally, you have the exercise, fitness for the mind, which is the lifelong learning. So you challenge your mind on a daily basis to comprehend, to learn stuff that is hard, like vocabulary wise, jargon wise, any like area that will really make you think. It's hard to understand. So you don't give up. You understand the vocabulary is some new area that you want to learn. For example, if I like to learn business law on the side of my business, or accounting, even though I have a professional accountant who does my taxes, of course, every year, I still learn accounting to understand what's going on with my taxes, because it's very important when you have businesses to understand accounting and how the business works. Those types of things. I mean, they didn't come immediately when I started real estate, but eventually I realized the more I learn about any aspect of the business, the better off I will be as a business person and more successful, and the wealthier I become. And that's exactly how it works. But the mind operates very similarly to the body. They're not disconnected. They're completely connected. And both of them necessitate nutrition, detox, and exercise. So the spiritual aspect is very close to every other aspect of health. And I help people realize that, because I tell them, look, your spiritual life and your body health, it's nothing separate from each other. And then they feel, say, oh, that's right, because everybody's spiritual in their own way. They just maybe haven't been awakened to that. You don't have to be religious. There are other ways to be spiritual. You can just love nature. You can love just the way that you exist and breathe every day, in the way you relax and think about the world and your loved ones and what you have or what you would like to have. Spirituality has so many aspects. It's not it's a great way to open your mind and really realize who you are. You can mirror yourself with somebody else, but you don't have to follow anybody's advice on spirituality. You truly just have to awaken a little bit and see what really your understanding about it is. And people are so busy. They don't even have time to ask themselves these questions very often.
Yeah. What would you say is the biggest misunderstanding with what you're doing with the holistic confidence?
The biggest misunderstanding I'm seeing is that people, when they hear holistic, they really think health, physical, mental, and emotional. And holistic also involves your financial status. I'm sorry, but money is just such a huge concern. It's not because it's like a bad thing, or to some families is a taboo to talk about money, but money is an urgent force that gives you choices and freedom if you use it in a way that promotes freedom in your life and helping others to the best of your ability. But that is part of holistic. And I'm not afraid to say that wealth is part of holistic health and confidence and everything, because people are healthy, but if they're not confident financially, they limit their lives in terms of choice. And then they have to succumb to other people's decisions that are not necessarily in their best interest, because they make the decisions for them. And I don't like it. People are intimidated by the financial jargon, the vocabulary, the concepts, because they really aren't as complicated as they seem. I mean, if somebody like me could create 3 real estate businesses, I think everybody can. Because, Joe, I was very illiterate financially when I ventured into real estate investing. And I realized it was just like nursing. With nursing, I had to study 12 hours a day. I read the textbook sometimes until 3 a.m. in the morning, and get up at 6 in the morning to go to classes. But with finances, it wasn't like the push of school and exams. It was more the push that I placed on myself, just because I wanted to expand my understanding of how money and the world work. The economy, political events, everything is connected when it comes to investing. So you really have to push yourself to expand your worldview in any way you can, because while we live and we have the brains to think, there's nothing better to do than that.
Right. So let's get into the real estate business. What would you suggest is a good starting point for somebody who is not in real estate? And audience here is a lot of real estate agents. They're seeing a lot of real estate, and some of them are not investing in it. So how would you suggest they approach that?
Well, for one thing, you need to see if that's something that is for you or not, because it comes with a relevant risk and responsibility, like every investment. There is no risk-free investment, but you also want to have, again, a plan for your long-term financial, how do you say it? Like it's a goal, but also where do you want to be financially when you're 55, 60, or 65? How much do you want your net worth to be? Are you more of a cash flow type of investment or capital gains investment investor or both? How do you approach it? Well, it really depends on what you want to do later in your life. And you start working on it now. So do you want to work until 65 or do you want to retire at 45 or 50 with cash flow coming in your bank account as you sleep? Okay, so you approach it with the necessary amount of responsibility. I took mentorship because I was absolutely clueless. And Joe, the first real estate property I purchased was actually my fourplex. I was a tenant in this country for 14 years before I became an investor. So I didn't purchase my own house. I purchased an investment property, which was a fourplex, a building with 4 apartments. My boyfriend and I renovated 3 of the 4 apartments, and we lived in the fourth one that was not renovated at all, and it needed, but we wanted the tenants to feel comfortable first. So you will have to sometimes strategize. You got to learn the real estate strategy. So your personal situation determines what you buy first,
Yeah,
but understand that this is a tangible asset. This is one of the best investments you can possibly commit to. Yes, it requires a little bit more time to learn and manage. However, you can touch it, you can see it, you can get in it, you can get out of it. That's a real asset. It's not a fake asset like many paper assets are. And unfortunately, so many people gravitate towards paper assets because they seem easy. Well, they are easier to understand, to an extent, easier to manage. They don't come with any less risk, though. On the contrary, there's much more risk with it because a fake asset can be there one day and then disappear the other day. There's no insurance on paper assets, very rarely. Buy a stock, it's not insured if it goes bankrupt. Okay. So with real estate, I have found it to be extremely, extremely great learning curve for me. But mentorship is very important. And I first read 6 or 7 books of the Rich Dad Company, Robert Kiyosaki, before I took the leap of faith and purchased his real estate investment class online. And mentorship is priceless when you don't know something like it's a very potentially risky investment if you don't know what you're doing, because the investment itself is not risky, but the investor is very risky
yeah,
because they jump into some adventure and then hope for the best without the real knowledge. Mentorship is a responsible action. And before you invest in anything, you first need to invest in your financial literacy. That's first step.
What was it? I'm sure you had some times when you were somewhat overwhelmed doing what you're doing and getting into this. What was how do you bring back that 4 pillars or 5 pillars to keep you back on track? Or by using them, are you pretty steady all the time?
It's a way of life, because when the book came into existence, because also it was demanded by people who were asking me questions, how did you become the most confident person I know from somebody who was the most inconfident person I knew? And the system in the book, basically, I described what I had been implementing for the last 15, 17 years to get to where I am today. So it is a way of life. And once you publish a book, by the way, it keeps you even more accountable, because now you've told the world about your worldview and your thought process and everything. So even if you want to deviate every once in a while, you don't anymore, because now everybody knows what you're about. And you have to be 100% example of what you said about yourself and how you view the world and your work and everything that you do in relation to helping others and educating.
Excellent. Excellent. So I want to thank you for coming on the show. I have one more question before we go. For viewers, please subscribe. We have phenomenal guests like Alexandra on to talk about mindset, health, real estate, and success. Alexandra, you know what you know now. Right before you were about to transition out of being a violinist, what would you tell yourself, your younger self, now that you know what you know?
I would have told myself at age 27 to become a nurse instead of 32. That's what I would have told it. I would just have been more realistic about my lack of competitiveness at the time, and would have embraced the challenge earlier and not doubting my abilities to learn the way I was doubting when I was 27, 28, 29, and would have done it more out of proactivity instead of out of desperation, like it happened when I was in my early 30s.
Yeah, so sometimes it's hard when somebody's in that situation to actually see the opportunities.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I know lots of musicians who would be great at doing other things, but because they lack any other skill than their instruments, and they're not as competitive as they should be to prosper as musicians, but they wouldn't change. It's sad to see that. Exactly what you're saying.
Yeah, it's been fantastic. Thank you so much, Alexandra. I really appreciate your time and your wisdom, and I look forward to learning more as I'm going to read your book and we'll go from there.
Thank you, Joe, for having me. I appreciate it. Thank
Do
you.
your best. Have fun.